Hello and welcome to Strangers Stopping Strangers, podcast number 15. Thank you so much for joining. This has been so much fun. I think I mentioned on my last one I'm going to every other week, and so far so good. I actually had some time the last couple weeks to learn how many people are listening, and so far as of today, there's been 800 downloads in the last 2 weeks. So I am just so happy about that. These are so much fun to make, and it just really makes my heart smile to know that people are listening and enjoying it. So thank you to everybody. So today's guest, Joe Ford, we met on Twitter and had some conversations and a lot of laughs. So I was really looking forward to hearing his story on the podcast with his music and sharing it with everyone. It's a bit of an East Coast, West Coast story, so I think it'll resonate with many of you listeners, and it's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to make. And last thing is, I am going with the format that I started last week, which is that I'm going to have sizable chunks of music and then also have a full listening companion. And this is going to be available both on the website and able to download on iTunes. So for those who want to hear the uninterrupted songs, they are available on a separate podcast. So as always, thank you so much for tuning in and for listening, and have a good couple of weeks. Enjoy. So, thank you so much for joining Strangers Stopping Strangers.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I've been excited about this conversation because we've chatted on the phone and have had a lot of laughs. So I'm excited to share our banter with all those listeners out there.
Banter, yes. I think that's what we've had going on here. It's a lot of banter.
A lot of banter. Banter's a good thing.
Good banter. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Banter is better.
Yeah.
So we will banter as we go through our topics that we want to talk about today. So Strangers Stopping Strangers. I want to hear a story. So tell me the beginning. Tell me how you got involved in this crazy community.
Well, it's interesting. I got involved before I was too young to be involved. When the Dead played in Englishtown, I was really, really young. And I remember seeing it was all over the front page of the paper. You know, the skulls, the roses, all these people. And I asked my parents, you know, who are these people? Who are the Grateful Dead? And, you know, my mom said, oh, they're a bunch of hippies. And my dad said, oh, they're a bunch of freaks, you know. But neither one, I think, really knew anything about them. And they just kind of put them in the hippie and freak box. But that's what spurred my interest, was seeing that. And I was much too young to go. But
so young, like 10, 12, 14?
Yeah, I think I was probably about maybe 8 or 10. I don't remember when that Englishtown show was. I was born in 1967. So, but what, you know, so it was always in my head. And then, you know, back then we had record stores. We don't really have those anymore. And I saw Steal Your Face. And I saw the album, and it was right around the bicentennial. And now as an executive and a marketing major, I realized what a great job of branding that was, because the album itself really wasn't that great. But, you know, you still see the Steal Your Face logo all over the place. But I had to have it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I had to have it. I saw it. I had to have it. I bought it, opened it up. On the inside, it had pictures of, you know, the Dead and Phil and Donna and Jerry. And I was just, before I even put it on, I was just really amazed to see these people who looked like they really didn't give a shit about what anyone thought about them, which was obviously great. So I listened to that, and there was a lot of great songs on Steal Your Face, but just the quality of it was really poor. But that was my first experience of listening to the Dead, was Steal Your Face. So,
and then, how long did you go between that and then getting to see a show? Did you find
probably
other friends for the music, or like?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was a great album because I hadn't heard any other Dead albums.
Right.
So at the time, I thought it was a great album. So, you know, I went out and bought all of them. You know, Wake of the Flood. You know, I think it was my second album, which to this day I think is a masterpiece. It gets some bad bad reviews from people, but I think Wake of the Flood is excellent. And then I want to say that the third album I bought was Shakedown Street, and I remember when Shakedown Street came out, a lot of the older kids that I was kind of hanging out with, who were Deadheads, said, "Oh, it sucks. It's disco dead." Because remember, that was when the whole disco sucks thing was going on.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I didn't think it sounded like disco at all. I thought it sounded really funky, and then I really liked it. And I thought Good Lovin', the cover of Good Lovin' was great. I had heard my mom play that song, the original song, while she was cleaning house a million times.
Yeah.
Then the other ironic thing was about the Dead was, and you and I talked about this a little bit, was all the great covers they had. A lot of these things, like Big River, I'd heard my dad play Johnny Cash, Big River,
Right.
over and over again. So, it really all came together for me around 1981 when I went to my first show. I was 14 years old, and I had a friend whose parents had a friend who worked security at Madison Square Garden, so they always got us tickets. And we went to see Grateful Dead in 1981, Madison Square Garden, first show,
Yeah,
and it was life-changing. It really was. It was great.
Wow. Well, they would play pretty multiple shows then at the time. I mean, for as soon as they started filling out Madison Square Garden, right? There would be 4 or 5, 6 shows that they would just pound into New York City.
Yeah. Yeah. At that time, I want to say they were probably doing 3 or 4 shows.
Okay. Nice.
I mean, I was only allowed to go to one.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, technically I was grounded, and I had to beg my parents to let me go to this show because I had done something very, very bad, and they let me go.
I'm intrigued. All right. Well, safe space here, out there on the airwaves if you want to share it. If not, we can all fantasize about what the bad thing was.
Well, on my 14th birthday, I got caught smoking, and not smoking cigarettes, smoking weed.
Yeah.
So, that didn't go over real well with my parents, especially with my dad, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was grounded. You're grounded, young man, and but I was like, I had these tickets, and it was really my mom. My mom was like the real laid back type, and she convinced my dad to let me go. And
well, what a perfect thing. I mean, to get caught smoking pot, be grounded, and then to get out and go to a Dead show. You couldn't have a better juxtaposition. Right, exactly. It's not like you're going to smoke pot at the Dead show, I mean, come on. He's learned his lesson. Let's let him go to the Dead show. There's no pot there, Let's put him in a position where he's not going to repeat the error of his ways.
Yeah. Well, my mom was a bleeding heart liberal, and I found out later on that she had experimented herself. So she grew up in the '60s, it wasn't as serious to her. My dad was a no smoking, no drinking kind of guy. So he thought everybody that smoked pot or listened to that type of music, like I said earlier with the whole English Town thing, they were all a bunch of freaks to him,
Bit of an
So, yeah, pretty much. So, 81, half, and I'll never forget, I thought it was so cool because something happened, a speaker blew or an amp or something like that, and the crowd cheered, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool because I'd been to a few other concerts, and all the bands were always so scrutinized, and here they are, the first song, and they blow an amp, and everybody starts cheering, and then someone comes out and just, unplugs a couple wires and plugs them back in, and they just kept going, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool, like, nobody really cares,
right.
And that's one of the things that, I'm sure we've all noticed in seeing shows over the years too, is that when they screw up, they usually get an applause.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. I mean, we're not perfect, and they're out there having a good time, and we're having a good time. And I mean, I think that's what's so textbook about a Dead show.
book about it is that there is no textbook, you know, like
Exactly.
the idea that they're all different and they're all real and they're all unique, you know, all snowflakes, like there's going to be, you know, there's going to be things that are perfect about them and things that are flawed. And I think that's kind of part of the community and what we love about it so much, you know.
You know, the other thing is that, you know, the view of Deadheads in the band is, you know, like a bunch of lazy slackers is so wrong. I mean, there has never been a harder working band in the business. No one's ever toured like the Dead, and you know, their work ethic was unbelievable. I mean, they were out there almost every single night. So, you know, it's not like bands, you know, would pop an album out and they'd go out and do the same concert, you know, over 20 cities, 2 nights, and then they disappear for 3 years. I mean, the Dead was always there, you know, and there was always something we could count on. So it was the 81 first show, and
well, let's go into some music, and then let's go into some music, and let's hear a song we picked. Must Be the Roses. It Must Have Been the Roses. I'm sorry,
Beautiful
from that
song.
from 81.
Yeah.
Must Have Been the Roses. We're going to start off with a beautiful ballad, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit about the further East Coast experiences, and then what brought you west. So everybody enjoy. We're going to play Must Have Been the Roses, and I'm going with the same format I did on the last one, which is I'm going to just pick about 3-4 minutes of this song, and then there's going to be a companion guide that is going to have the full song in its entirety. So I'm going to play a nice, long, sizable clip of this song, and then we're going to go in, and then there's going to be on the website, perhaps downloadable, I'm still working out the details, all of the songs without any of our chatter available for everyone to listen to too. So don't get upset if it gets cut. I will make sure the whole song is available for you as well. So all right, well let's enjoy.
In a long road. complaining though.
So we are back from listening to Must Have Been the Roses, and we are on the East Coast in '81. So Joe, take us down the road, down the journey. Where did the path lead you after 14?
Well, I saw a lot of shows up and down the East Coast, and the one thing about the East Coast shows that was a lot different, and most people would concur with this, was that there was sort of a pent-up excitement on the East Coast because it just wasn't there all the time, right? So you had a lot of pent-up excitement, whereas, you know, and I guess we'll talk about the West a little later, where the West was, you know, hey, it's another show. So
Right.
It was a little different. But, you know, I did Nassau. I did Madison Square Garden a lot because I could take the train right in. I don't know, I just saw a bunch of shows. The one show that we're going to play some music from was 1985 at the Merriweather Pavilion, and I remember that distinctly because I had just graduated high school, and it was sort of a last-minute thing, and it's really a cool story. And I had this friend, James. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He passed away. But so we decided at the last minute to go and see the Dead at the Merriweather Pavilion. And we said, hey, all we got to do is get onto the Garden State Parkway and hitchhike. Another Deadhead will see us, and will take us to the show. So we had on, you know, our Grateful Dead gear, you know what I mean? And so we said, someone will pick us up. Well, we did get picked up, but it wasn't by a Deadhead. It was by a New Jersey State Trooper. So,
oh my.
Yeah, it wasn't a good start to the trip. We were only out there like 5 minutes.
Was it illegal to hitchhike at that point? Was it like illegal at that point?
Yeah, it was illegal to hitchhike. And we weren't out there 5
or anything, right? I mean, you guys weren't packing any drugs.
Let's just say this was probably the nicest state trooper I ever met. I don't think that now, I think it would be a different ending to the story now.
Absolutely.
But we weren't out there for 5 minutes and woo, like, oh,
Right.
great, you know. So he goes through our pockets, he confiscates various items, then he goes, all right, where are you guys going? We told him, so we're going to the Merriweather Pavilion. He's like, well, you have plenty of money, because we did. We each had, I don't know, probably $100 or something.
Right.
And he said, you could just take a bus there. He drove us to the Port Authority bus terminal in Newark, New Jersey.
Wow.
And we took the bus into Baltimore. We had no idea where Merriweather Pavilion was, but we knew it was somewhere near Baltimore. So we took the bus into Baltimore, and then there was Deadheads galore, you know, when we got to the bus terminal. So it was real easy to get a ride to the show, which we
Right.
did, and it was real easy for us to score tickets. That wasn't a problem. For whatever reason, it was like quick. We got in, saw a great show. And I believe we're going to play some music from that show.
We are. Well, that's an awesome story. That's so fun. That's
Yeah.
And it's something that again would play out differently now. I mean, we live in such a different
Probably
world
would.
now.
Yeah.
No, it will play out differently now. But that's awesome.
But
that's
keep
a-
in mind, by the time we got into that show, between the bus fare that we didn't know we were going to have to pay and the tickets and everything else, once we walked into that show, we just had a couple bucks in our pocket, and we had no idea how the hell we were going to get home, but we didn't really care.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't care, and we got in. We saw a great show. The first set was good, but the second set was really, really good.
Well, we picked Dear Mr. Fantasy from this, which was in the second set, and 85, so we're in full Brent's glory singing Dear Mr. Fantasy.
Awesome.
And, I mean, again, with the covers, you know, I mean, the Death catalog is so amazing, but, I mean, when they cover, you know, Traffic and covering, I mean, the Beatles, I mean, some of the best Death songs are them covering
Yeah.
the Beatles. I mean, it's
Well,
it's amazing.
the cool thing was Dear Mr. Fantasy was our, like, you know, tripping song.
Right.
You know, but we had never heard the Dead do it. So when they started, we kind of looked at each other. And then when Brent, you know, broke out into, you know, his raspy Dear Mr. Fantasy, we just looked at each other and, you know, just kind of jumped up and down like, you know,
we weren't expecting
elated.
this.
It's like, oh my God, like this isn't really happening. You know, this is right. And the whole journey to get there and then to hear that song and in the state of mind that we were in was just unbelievable.
Well, let's enjoy Dear Mr. Fantasy, our listeners, and we will come back, and then we were going to go on to the next leg of the trip. So everybody enjoy Brent belting out Dear Mr. Fantasy. are now back from listening to Dear Mr. Fantasy, and Joe, you had told me in our banter and our chatter that this concert was meaningful because of the story and the part of what happened there, but it led you on to the next road. So where are we going from here?
Yeah, so we get out of the show and we each have just a couple dollars. So we're looking for New Jersey plates because James and I knew we had to get home. And we had no way to get home. So we found like a caravan of people from New Jersey, and it was a bunch of guys playing hacky sack, stuff like that. So we just came up to them, and we were like, "Where are you from?" And I don't remember what town they were from, but they told us, and we were like, "Think we can get a ride back?" And they said, "Well, we're not going back. We're going to Pittsburgh," because I think that was the next show on the tour. And I'm like, "Oh man, well, do you know anyone else here that's going back? I really need to go. We really need to get home." Because all we had was like $2 in this blanket that I carried around that we used for everything from, sitting on the lawn at a concert to a tent to whatever. My mom knitted it. I was like Linus. I had this blanket I carried around, right?
Right.
So all of a sudden I hear, "Where's home?" And I looked, and there was a young lady there with a guy. And I said, "New Jersey." And she says, "Well, we're going to Connecticut. We can drop you off on the way home." And I thought, okay, yeah, that's cool. So, but the guy that was driving was, he goes, "Well, they can come, but, I'm not taking them to the doorstep because, we'll just leave them at the exit." And I'm like, whatever, I'm fine with that, So we pile into this Blazer. And it's the middle of summertime, and the air conditioning's, just blasting in the back. So I take my blanket and I put it over my legs, and this girl, I found out later her name was Claire, said, "What, you're not going to share your blanket?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll share my blanket with you. I don't care, So,
Sure.
yeah. So all of a sudden she starts playing footsie with me. She played footsie with me, an adult version of footsie the whole way home, which was rather interesting. And then she gave me her number, who she was living with her boyfriend at the time. I can't
And he
remember
was the
his
driver.
name. No, he was in the back right next to her. So either he was
Okay.
totally oblivious or he didn't care.
Okay.
Because James knew. He was like, "What was going on under that blanket?" You know what I mean?
Right.
But anyway, so we got their number, and they're like, "Yeah, if you ever want to come up to Connecticut and get some fresh air," because where they dropped us off is like what most people think of New Jersey, like this industrial part of the turnpike with smokestacks and chemical plants and all this. And they're like, "You live here?" We're like,
Right.
"Well,
not really. Not at the
yeah, it doesn't really look like this where we live, but I do live in New Jersey." Like, "Well, if you ever want to come up to Connecticut," and they were from New Haven.
Right.
So anyway, they dropped us off. So we kept in touch, but every time I would call up there, she would sort of dominate the conversation. So this guy would say, "Well, let me give you to Claire." He talked to me for like 5 minutes. He'd say, let me give you to Claire," and she would talk my ear off, So we stayed in touch. We didn't see each other at any of their shows, but we stayed in touch. We talked. So she called me one time, and she said, "Hey, I'm out here in California. You should really come out here." I thought, well, I don't have any money to come out there, And she says, "Well, if you come out here, there's an extra room. You can stay out here." So I asked James, and he says, "I don't want to go," because he had a really good job. So I worked construction for a few weeks, saved up a few $100, and I convinced this other friend of mine, a guy named Lou, to go out there with me. So we drove out there. We don't know. I didn't really pay attention to geography.
Right.
So we drove to L.A., and she was up in San Francisco. So I'm like, "Hey, we're in California. Are you going to meet us?" She's like, "Where are you?" "I'm in L.A." "L.A.? Like, what the hell are you doing down there?" I'm like, "I don't know. I mean, it's California. It's palm trees. It's, I thought that's where you're supposed to go." And she's like, No. You need to come up to San Francisco." So I did. We drove up to San Francisco, and she was staying there with someone named Luke, who she claimed to be her cousin, but I don't think it was her cousin because he wasn't real cool with me being there. But I stayed anyway. And, we had a good time. And Lou, my other friend, he's like, look, man, this guy Luke, I can't take him. I'm out of here. So he left me. This is interesting. He left me. He went down to Phoenix. I don't know how he ended up down there. And we stayed in touch for a while, and then I lost touch with him. So Lou, if you're listening, get in touch with me on Twitter or whatever. I have no idea. He fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah, but
yeah, he fell off the face of the earth.
Part of the journey, though, right? Without Lou, you may have not had the balls to go from New Jersey
down
to
and then we picked up a dog that we found on the side of the road, Fritzy. He took Fritzy down to, so we're traveling around with this pit bull. We're living out of a Vega, you know what I mean? Okay. So he took Fritzy and they went down to Phoenix, and we talked a few times after that. Then he just fell off the face of the earth. So I have no idea whatever happened to him. But saw some great shows when I was out west, and probably saw more shows in the couple years I was out west than I saw the whole time I was out east.
So let me wrap my mind around. So Claire brought you out there. Did you stay living with Claire and cousin Luke, or did cousin Luke involve?
We stayed there for a while, and then he had a place on Pearl Street, which is down in the Mission District.
Yeah.
And the thing about Claire was that she was super, super friendly. She's an attractive girl, and her and I had a friendship, and we agreed that, we would keep it, everything would be open, and, there was no commitment. So if I ever wanted to get up and leave, or she ever wanted to get up and leave, we could do that. It was no big deal. But when he started being a real ass, I was like, I'm out of here. And she was like, well, where are you going to go? I said, I don't know. I'll probably go back home. So the first time I wanted to go back home, she convinced me not to. So she called some other guy, and she was like, who was down in Santa Cruz, and, we wound up, bad part about that was there was really no place to stay. We slept on the floor for a while, and, and that was the end, though. I mean, I knew that was coming to an end. I'm like, I can't do this, But,
did you stay in touch with Claire, or when you were done, it was just again part
of we tried to stay in touch. I mean, you kind of know how that goes. I mean, we stayed in touch. See, the thing about Claire was her parents had a ton of money, and at any time, if she needed to, all she had to do was make a phone call, but she didn't want to do that. So, we'd be scraping change together, and people would be like, just call your dad. And no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. But every once in a while, she would give in and call. But she went with me to Santa Cruz because I guess she got fed up with, Luke's BS too. But it was kind of you could tell it was kind of getting towards the end, and I had to make some decisions, and I knew if I went back home, I could stay with my parents for a while to get on my feet, stuff like that. So that's what I wound up doing.
Well, it sounds like an amazing journey. I want to go into a couple of West Coast songs. So let's play Laguna Seca, because I earmarked
Great
that,
venue.
and we'll talk for a few minutes, and then we'll talk about the last few years out there. And the Laguna Seca, this was I think it was at her first show. I think this was my big sister's first show. I remember the Laguna Seca shows I do, because I didn't go. My older sister Michelle, who got it. My aunt got us into the music when I was maybe 14 and Michelle was 18. So she went off to college.
Okay.
And I was a freshman, and she was a freshman in college when I was a freshman in high school. And it was the summer that she had come back from college. She was going to UC Davis. And I remember, or actually maybe it was the year before she went off to college. And I always remember the Laguna Seca shows. And I think I might have even lied and pretend I was there when I've talked to friends back when I was a teenager.
Maybe she gave you a T-shirt. Maybe she got you a T-shirt, and you were like, yeah, I was there. Yeah. They were good shows.
They were great. But I feel like I know the Laguna Seca shows because it was my sister went camping, and it was her birthday. It was July 31st was the weekend, and the show that I am playing for us here today, it was on the 29th, so 1988. Yep. So it was her year between college, freshman, sophomore, and her birthday's July 31st. So hey now, Michelle. So she was there, and I feel like I was there, but I was not. But I'm
You were there in
excited.
spirit. You were there in spirit.
And I think some like bullshit teenage bragging that I was never really there. So I'll clear the air for anyone who's ever lied to in the past. But I feel like I was there because Michelle was there, and she was my big sister. And what little sister doesn't look up to their big sister and steal their memories for their own? So
there you go.
Right, so we are going to play Queen Jane. So we are.
Oh, that's a great version of Queen Jane too. I mean, yeah, Dylan's a great songwriter, but I'd rather hear Bobby sing it.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this before.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
It's awesome. All right, well, everyone enjoy Queen Jane. We're going to come back and chat for a few more minutes, and I got one more West Coast show I want to play, and we'll wrap up our conversation. So everybody, Laguna Seca camping weekend, Carmel Valley Hills out there. This is
awesome.
The 29th of July, 1988. Enjoy.
And your father to your sister explain that you're tired of yourself and all of your creations. Won't you come see me, Queen Jane? Won't you come see me, Queen Jane? Now we all the flower ladies want back what Pavilion too. And the smell of their roses does not remain. When all of your children, they all start to resent you. Won't you come see me, Queen Jane? Won't you come see me, Queen Jane? That you have permission of all die in battle or in vain. If you find yourself sick of all this repetition, won't you come see me, Queen Jane? Won't you come see me, Queen Jane? Now in all your advisors, heave their plastic, and your feet to convince you of your pain, trying to prove that your conclusions should be more drastic. Won't you come see me, Queen Jane? Won't you come and see me, Queen Jane?
are back from our camping trip at Laguna Seca, at the raceway there, and yeah, those were the best times. Those camping weekends, those getaways. I mean, just they were so fun.
By the way, that blanket actually made it to Laguna Seca as well. So
really,
I lost it somewhere along the way. I think on the way coming back east, but yeah, my mom's knitted blanket made it all the way out west. So
was it blue like Linus's?
No, it was actually, I can picture it perfectly. It was actually it looked like a checkerboard. So she knitted it. So it would have like a dark brown square and like a beige square. And it was squares. It looked like a big checkerboard. But anyway, I don't know whatever happened to it, but it made it.
Well, we were just talking about being at the shows and being at the parking lot, being in the adventure. So the last show that we picked to talk about, which is kind of funny because I, again, have one of those, now I'm losing all my credibility. I have another one of those kind of like bullshit memories, but it was real to me, and it counts. I swear it counts to me. So we were talking about to pick out one more Bay Area show, and you chose the Greek, yes?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the Greek Theater, amazing.
It is amazing. It is amazing. And the great thing about the Greek is you felt like, not that you didn't at the other shows, but you really felt like you were part of the band, like you were part of the whole thing. It all kind of comes together. Some of the bigger outdoor shows, you lose that, but the Greek was great for that.
The Greek I did see one or two shows at. Frost is still like my hands down, like again, first show place. But this particular date, I'm laughing at the Greek that we pulled up. So with the show that we're going to play now is from August 19th, 1989. And this is a show that, again, I may think in my mind I was there because I was there, but I wasn't inside. I was outside where they simulcasted it outside in the parking lot. So I feel like I was there, but I was in the outside of the Greek, not inside of the Greek. But
I'm sure it was still a good time, right?
Oh, it was so much fun. Well, we had a little help from, some little mind-altering substances. So it was kind of one of those nights that it didn't really matter where we were. We were going to have a good time. And but yes, that summer night in Berkley was, Berkley, you could just get lost in Berkley because it was just, there was always something interesting happening and people to look at and things happening. It just so much fun.
So much going on there. Even then, like everyone talks about Berkley just in the 60s, but even the Bay Area now, if you look at it, it always seems to be the beginning of everything, whether it's Silicon Valley or, whether it was Haight-Ashbury. It always seems like it's at the cutting edge. It always seems like it's at the beginning of something really big. And, Berkeley has a lot of historical significance. And it's still a great place now.
Absolutely. No, I love it out there. I mean, the Oakland Hills and Berkeley and Piedmont, and I've met some people through this journey. So, hey to all you guys who have lived out there or been out there, and it's a neat place. It's got just a very cool cultural sophistication to it. I feel that College Avenue, Piedmont, Berkeley area. So, well, I mean, you're at UC Berkeley, so you've got some intelligent people populating the area, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to play Jack Straw, and I don't know if I've had Jack Straw on Strangers Stopping Strangers. If I have, it's been a while, and gosh, this is one of my all-time favorites. So
great.
So this is going to be
song.
fun. We're going to play Jack Straw, and this is from the Greek Theater at the University of California, Berkeley, and this is on the 19th of August, 1989. So everybody enjoy some Jack Straw, and then we will be back to sign off and say goodbye.
Sounds great.
Welcome back again from our last song. So we're going to do a little sign off, little goodbye. I mean, quite a bit of time has gone by since '89, and so Joe, just tell us a little bit where you're at now, and bring us all full circle.
Well, I did come back to the East Coast, got a regular job, and I saw a couple of shows back here, but it's kind of after the whole Touch of Gray thing, and they call it the Touches. So a lot of people started coming out to the shows that weren't there before, and it was kind of part of me in my situation and sort of the landscape changing that I just really stopped going to shows. I maybe saw a couple. Went out to Chicago for a show, Rosemont. And maybe 3 or 4 shows when I got back east. I can tell you that when Jerry died, like everybody else, I knew exactly where I was. But I didn't really mourn at that time. I had so much going on. I was married now, had a child. And I was kind of like, well, I can't say I didn't see that coming. Right. And, I never really got back into it. Like a lot of the people in the scene were still going to see Bobby and Rat Dog and Phil and Friends and stuff like that. And I was such a Jerry guy that I just really couldn't do it. Right. Until recently, I kind of just finally mourned Jerry's death, I guess you can say. And I think Dead and Company is great. I think John Mayer fits in perfectly. When I first heard it, I was like, what? But then to see it, it really is amazing. And social media is great. Meeting people, and even if you don't meet them, just looking at their comments and knowing that there's still this huge community out there.
I agree.
Great.
I mean, it's been mind blowing for me. I mean, you and I met on Twitter. We haven't met in person. And I mean, the amount of amazing people that I've met, I mean, the majority of everyone that's been on this podcast, I've met through communities, through social media, and we're friends, right. You find your people. And I mean, it's, we've talked, Julie and I talk about this, and I've talked about this before. I was never a big social media person, but with the Dead community, just jumping into it, it's very cool. It's the resurgence and just again, the like-minded people. I mean, the messages and the pictures and the things that everyone shares with each other. I mean, it's the patchwork of our lives. And from, Ian, who was 17 on the podcast, he's never been to a show, to, Tom last week, who, worked, for Bill Graham, right. And yourself and Juliet, who met her husband. I mean, this has just been so much fun getting to meet everybody from all walks of life. Business people like you and I joke about, we go out there in the day and we do our work, but yep. it's in our soul, and it makes us who we are, and it's awesome to be able to connect with the listeners. I'm sure there's all walks of life out there listening, so it's really, really fun.
Well, the other cool thing is, we're deadheads. But, we're husbands, we're mothers, we're, wives, grandfathers, grandmothers, we're salespeople, we're executives, we're welders, whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
But we all have that common bond. The one thing I do want to say about the Dead and how it's affected me, in my life as an executive, is just sort of the social responsibility that the Dead community has always sort of latched onto and embraced is really a big deal in business now. And again, this is something that we've been, doing for, I don't know, before I became a Deadhead, right? 40, right. 50 years, all this environmental stuff and social responsibility. It's really important. And now the rest of the world is seeing that it's really important. But we always knew it was really important.
Oh, absolutely. I was a member of the Green Party that I signed up for in Shoreline when I was 18 before anything else, and again, my politics are, are varied, and it's not a political conversation, but I mean, that was the first thing that captured my interest, was learning about the rainforest and the Green Party. And I mean, that was my introduction into politics, and that is 100% at the Dead Show, like I would not have gone down that path had I not been, educated in the parking lot about what was going on when I was 18 years old. So, I mean, the voting and all the stuff they're doing now, it's really amazing. And I think even more than that, and in addition to that, I'll leave with just are you kind? I think we come back to, there's a lyric for everything. And, people are frustrating in business and in life and in relationships. And like, I feel like we can channel back to, just some of the core lyrics, just to not take yourself too seriously, and to be kind, and to have fun, and that, it's
kind, ethical. I find that people in this community are very ethical. It's just it's great to be part of it, and I'm glad I'm back into it.
Yeah, well, I am too, and I'm glad that we met. So I am glad. This is a conversation I was looking forward to, and I'm excited to share it with our listeners. So thank you, because again, you're busy. Well, we're all busy, but you're a busy man. We're all busy, but you have a lot of structure. So I really appreciate you, taking the time out of the day to have this, and I'm excited to listen to it and air it. And thank you very, very much. And
well, thanks.
I'm looking forward to meeting me.
Yeah.
We're
going to
meet.
different Bobby shows, but we'll
meet.
Yeah.
We'll meet. I'm going to see as much good music on the East Coast as I can, and I know you are too. So at some point, whether it's New York or Connecticut or Massachusetts or New Jersey, we will meet. We will meet in person, and we will shake our bones. So
that sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you, and as always, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Stopping strangers, just a shake of hands. Everybody's playing in the heart of Golden Band, heart of Gold Band.